On this episode of Real Estate on the Rocks, we're going to talk about two types of people, successful versus unsuccessful.
Welcome to Real Estate on the Rocks, where you get top shelf real estate conversations served straight up, never watered down. Here's your host, Dave Snowberger.
All right, let's go ahead and get going on this one, guys. So today on Real Estate on the Rocks, we're going to talk about successful versus unsuccessful, really some habits between the two folks. And we're not really going to call out people that are unsuccessful. However, we're going to talk about habits of successful people. And if you don't do these things, that's more than likely why you're being unsuccessful in your career right now. And so let's go ahead and dive into it deep here. Kick it off, Marshall, with number one.
Number one. The superstar eliminates all things unproductive, which I guess they're talking about all of our squirrel moments, because we get a lot of squirrel moments.
Yeah, so throughout the day, it's busy work, right? So things that feel like you're working, or maybe like an inspection comes back.
Well, if you're lead generating and then you get a client that calls you and something is up with their inspection, they want to talk about it right now, and et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of a squirrel moment because you're supposed to, reserve that space just for lead generating. There's a car that's always honking the horn outside the window that gets us every podcast, and there's other little squirrel moments, but it's taking care of business and not letting the little distractions, steer you off course.
Right. Okay. So I certainly think that our whole group and everybody that we deal with definitely has their squirrel moments through the day. Some more examples of that are really just responding to, you say your email pings, and then you start getting in your email. Next thing you know, you're 4 or 5 emails deep, and you're looking at the best specials that RedX or Mojo. This is what I was doing earlier today. My phone.
It leads to Amazon. Now you're on Amazon shopping, and
yeah. Next thing you know, it's like I'm buying a stand for an iPad for open houses. And so it's like, what? Where did that come from? But then after 2-3 hours pass by, it feels like I've worked a whole bunch, and it's time for lunch, right? Absolutely not. So successful people, what they do is they hunker down, they eliminate those distractions, maybe put your phone on silent. I put my phone a lot on airplane mode, so nothing can come in and bother me. However, I have to learn to silence my MacBook also, because the notifications come through there. Like I'm learning right now how it's popping up in my left-hand corner and telling me that I have a text message from a builder right now. So fun stuff there. So number two, full 8 hours a day. Are you working a full 8 hours a day? It kind of segues from what we were just talking about. What do you consider work all day long? Marshall, James?
8 hours on direct income producing activities, not, non-income producing activities. So if you're just playing around on Facebook all day instead of making your calls, and then you get home and you feel like you worked really hard, but you still didn't talk to anyone, that's not really working a full 8 hours.
Right. And what our schedule should look like every day is really to lead generate, lead follow up, go on appointments, negotiate contracts, and practice scripts and role play in no particular order there. However, I think starting out the morning with practicing scripts and role play is one of the most important things right there, and really sets the day, sets the tone for the calls that you're about to make, or the text messages, or the marketing videos, or some of the face-to-face stuff you're about to do throughout the day. It really sets the tone. So I really like the practice scripts and role play and getting that going first. 8 hours a day seems daunting to do lead generation, doesn't it?
It can. Once you get to a schedule and you itemize those things out, so you're focusing on certain things for certain periods of time, it doesn't seem as large and as daunting as of a task as punching the clock for 8 hours. But you need to do that at least 8 hours. But keep chugging along and keep chipping away at different systems, or at your whole system, piece by piece, to get going with the day.
And I think that's helpful for a lot of new agents starting out, is they hear this and they're like, man, I don't want to work 8 hours a day doing lead generation. Well,
what were you doing before?
Because you don't. Well, I would just say relax, because you don't have to. If you actually barrel down and you build your bunker around you, and you knock out 8 hours of lead generation for, say, 14 to 21 days straight, you're, after the 21st day, if you're doing things correctly, you're going to start seeing things change drastically in how your day goes. And that's really more about the lead generation, lead follow-up. Now you're going on appointments. And so you can fill your 8 hours a day of going on appointments or writing contracts. I mean, contracts don't write themselves, and it certainly takes some time to research the property, write the contract, make sure that you have all supporting documents that go with it. And now that you've broken that down, the day gets a little bit, 8 hours in the day. If each task is done at 2 hours, you certainly don't want to do 2 hours of practice scripts and role play, but I would clock at least, 2 hours a week on it. If not more, but definitely 2 hours of lead generation being, all the, whatever you deem as lead generation, whether you're running Craigslist ads, whether you're calling FSBOs, expireds, withdrawals, whether you're getting your open house ready for the week. There's a lot of people that just work open houses and make a great career doing that. And their prep work basically leading up all week long is to having killer open houses on the weekend. And they're running 2, 3, 4 open houses on the weekend, right? And so that would definitely be what a successful open house agent would do versus an unsuccessful one is to wait till the last minute, 5 o'clock or 5 o'clock on a Thursday. You have to get it done because most agents aren't in the office on Friday, so you have to find a property. If you don't have one, you have to talk to an agent, get that property, you put it in, you have to ask them to put it in an MLS. They do it at their leisure. It syndicates out to ZTR, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor, and then Saturday you're going to do an open house. You didn't prep for it. You didn't, that's part of lead generation. That falls in that category. Most people think lead generation is what? Just making phone calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In this day and age, people don't really want to make phone calls, and so they want to send maybe text messages or emails or whatever else. But, if you're working on those open houses, cool. You don't have to necessarily make phone calls anymore. You just prep for your open house. That does count as lead generation. Now, the next week after the next few days, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's your lead follow-up from your open houses. So you can schedule your week to look at however you want to look at it, 40 hours a week of lead generation. You can break it down to specific activities and get a full 40 hours a week. And in 21 days, in 30 days, your career will look drastically different than it does right now, and especially kicking off the new year coming up. If you're getting into this and you're hitting it now and you're prepping everything to get the habits that as soon as the new year hits, you start going after it again. You have those systems in place. You realize what your strong points of lead generation are. That's what a successful agent would do. An unsuccessful agent would just put it off and wait till the new year and enjoy too much eggnog and pie and, just wait and do a New Year's resolution of I'm going to work my butt off when I get back to the office, and then 7 days later, shake off the cobwebs from the holidays and get back to work. Successful agents wouldn't do that. And if you can cite 1 or 2 of them, once again, I always talk about those are the exceptions, not the rule. So number 3, what you got, Marshall?
Understand the value of a schedule. If it's not on your schedule.
And all these kind of work hand in hand. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was saying, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist, right?
Right. I mean, the power of a schedule is something I was just talking about right there, is knowing where those 40 hours of work, that work week's coming from. I'm a firm believer that you need at least one solid day off. However, when you're first starting out in the first 2 years of this business, I wouldn't count on it very much. I'd at least take maybe 1 day off a month, just to kind of refresh and pack in some R&R that particular day. Take a day trip, go somewhere, drink heavily, do whatever you're going to do. However,
I think this is the first year I haven't worked every single holiday, every single major holiday. So
you haven't yet?
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean,
first 2 years I was working Easter, I was working Christmas Eve, I was working, just about every major holiday. We're always
still working. To me, I mean, I fielded phone calls.
When I say working, I mean showing homes, like actually.
I get it. But a lot of times we clock in mentally because we have to deal with problems. Like I had a big problem over the holiday with that just passed, Thanksgiving, with a buyer getting permission to move some things into the house, into the garage. And next thing you know, moved his whole house into his new house, and they haven't closed yet. Seller went there to pick up his things. Everything's gone. Buyer threw them all away. Like blown away by this. I'm actually blown away. I don't know if I told you that story yet. Yeah, I know, but that's exactly what the seller did. Was actually he locked all the properties, took the keys with him so nobody could access the property, and says, "Wow, look at my new storage facility." His big 3,000 square foot home is now a storage facility that he gets to, charge this guy rent on, or he's not signing. Anyway, so where are we at here? The value of a schedule. Yeah, if it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist. You need to have a schedule going 40 hours a week. You need to do those 7 income producing activities at a high level. I would say 40 hours a week. for those of us just starting out, for those of us just coming back into the real estate space, or those that maybe their businesses died down or they lost a specific way you were getting a ton of business, you need to refocus on what's the best use of your time for that 40 hours plus a week, and then do as much lead generation, as much follow-up as possible, and so you can have as many showings or many open houses on the weekends. So let's go on to number 4. What was that noise?
I don't know. It sounded like a guitar or something. Didn't it? What was that?
What are you doing over there, James? It's always James.
I got GarageBand. I hooked up the Nintendo. I got to put the TV
I'm
up.
just doodling. That's all I'm doing.
Of course.
Now y'all can't make fun of my drawing. Number 4, top producers make decisions quickly.
Yeah, I would say that our business struggles with this a little bit when people are making decisions. I have a high D personality. I'm running on the DISC test, and I seem to make decisions quickly. A lot of times they're not the best decision. However, I do make it. And just clarifying that not making a decision on something is actually making a decision, correct?
True.
Yep.
So you definitely want to move in the direction of making a decision on what works for you best, I believe, and make decisions swiftly, move on quickly. Commit first, figure it out later. That's how our friend Grant Cardone likes to say it, is commit first, figure it out later. It's working out for us, is that we get into it, we figure it out, and we get going on it. So, and if it doesn't work out, we fail quickly, and we pivot, and we start going another direction. And if we fail again, we keep doing it, and keep doing it, keep beating our head against the wall until we figure it out. Number 5, are you working on your skill? James, are you working on your skill?
Every day. It's always something. You have to decide, well, you want to know long-term where you're going, and then just start stacking content, start, podcasts and audio books and anything you can take in that'll grow you in that direction every day. Even if it's like 20, 30 minutes, you wake up early in the morning, grab a book, start pulling that stuff in. Like I went through 2 books over the Thanksgiving weekend. And so through audiobooks, because I didn't have a whole lot of time and had a little bit of internet, on the phone in between family activities, and just try to pull in as much stuff as I could. So it's always, carve out a little bit of time and just a little bit of progression every single day.
Yeah. And I mean, really, that's all you have to do. I mean, Audible's cheap. I mean, even YouTube, if you don't have the $14-15 a month to pay for the Audible, YouTube pretty much has the books. You just have to keep it open all the time. If you're not a Red subscriber, keep it open all the time and then listen to the ads. But you can certainly get most of the content that we talk about or books we read right off of YouTube right there. Podcasts are normally free. If you have an iPhone, you just go subscribe to them on there. There's Google for the Android users. There's Google Podcasts. There's
Spotify. All kind. I mean, there's so many different Android.
I mean, there's information. Us being in the information age, I mean, it's available at your fingertips and it's all free. So it's just really kind of what you decide to take in. It's all working on your skill. It's all going to better you. You'll be better the next day because you'll hear about something that's new to you. I mean, if it's a subject that are an expert in, don't listen to it. Go on to something else. However, I can probably say that none of us are experts in any field at this point.
It's good to have reinforcement. So
yeah, it's always good to have validation. Actually, I look for validation all the time. I was hearing a podcast earlier, and I was kind of playing in the background, and you guys were walking by, and I'm like, hey, I rewound it. I was like, come listen to this. And it gave me some validation of some meetings that we had leading up until, today was, these are the reasons why I do these things. And then they state how important it is for these to do this. Like I had instant validation and I had you guys right there to listen to it. So that was kind of cool. This number 6, look at number 6. So confront people when necessary. What do you take away from that, Marsh?
Confront people when necessary. Well, we're in the business of negotiation, so sometimes you have to have those tough conversations with the listing agent or even with your client. I remember my first couple of years, I would have that difficult conversation, and I just kind of sit on it all day long. I don't want to make that call.
Stress about it,
but
tum would hurt.
Going back to number 4, the top producers make decisions quickly. So I quickly made the decision to go ahead and give them the call, deliver whatever kind of news I had to, and get that information so I can go ahead and start putting the pieces together to move forward, or saving the deal however we have to. So
right. And like confront people when necessary. I've got something that's on the market for 12 days. It seems to be there's a great deal of hand holding that needs to be going on with this particular seller, which I'm okay with. However, I can't respond to texts 24/7. They're coming in as late as 11 o'clock at night, and they're coming in as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. And it's the constant redundancy of, why is my house not showing? What's going on with it? This realtor said this. Like, the person's still talking to other realtors and saying, you know, and realtors at this point, when they find out someone's got a realtor, they're going to throw us under the bus as fast as possible, right? However, this type of property's in my wheelhouse. I absolutely know what I'm doing. I've showed the data is all I can show to really kind of smooth the relationship over and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. You hired me for a reason. Let me run the transaction. And I get a little bit of pushback on it. So I've had to have the tough conversation like, hey, look, the text and conversations need to stop until this point. I'll do a follow-up with you, you know, every other day. It doesn't have to be every hour on the hour. You know, have 12 days into the whole thing. Have you heard anything yet? Have you heard anything yet? Like, that's obviously, that's not the best use of my time to respond to those texts, like nothing yet. But that text isn't good enough. They want something more articulate, like, well, break it down. Why haven't you heard anything yet? And it's just like, all right, let's stop here, you know? And it's just kind of like that tough conversation that most agents won't have or aren't prepared to have with their clients that might need a little bit more hand-holding or might be a little bit more obstinate against, like, just taking advice of like, hey, look, this is a process. I do this every single day. I do this. I have multiple listings. You're not my only one. I know that you want to be my only one. You're getting the attention of if it was my only one. However, you know, it's like the constant text message things have to stop, you know, and I haven't broke out the whole family thing yet. Like, please don't text me after a certain time or call after a certain time. However, that'll be the next conversation, right? So that's a tougher conversation, right? And so I want to make her feel like she's still my number one on my list, but I still have to have that conversation without crossing that line. And that's even tougher sometimes. So James, you got anything on that one?
No, it's just, well, yeah, the conversations, although they can be a struggle, it's just best to get in there. You know, don't come in there with a lot of emotion. Just, you know, communicate effectively, go through the process, explain everything as best you can. It works best if you can understand how they receive information, but lay it all out there. Don't get caught up in, sometimes when you're talking to people, they get emotional with you. And so sometimes that grabs you in, and then you're both getting emotional and it just gets completely out of control. So
yeah, and you just hit something on the head there was the whole thing about, like, in my position of being the team leader of Snowburger Realty Group, like, I have to have tough conversations with staff. I have to have tough conversation with realtors that are on my team. I have to have tough conversations with, you know, inspectors or whoever else. You have to have those tough conversations. A lot of times you and I, James, have had tough conversations because you're a little bit newer to the business. You've butchered some of the episodes that we always call you the butcher about. You know, and we, like, those are tough conversations because your work is greatly appreciated. However, a few times we have to have these conversations that bring everything back in line and put everything back in perspective of, this is why we do things. This is why we make these phone calls. This is why we lead generate, lead follow up. This is why we call leads immediately in the first 5 minutes, because the hit rate's better. And then explaining those situations, a lot of times I think team leaders or brokers aren't prepared to have those conversations because they're stepping on eggshells around agents, because agents, a lot of times, no offense to anyone, are a little bit more that high D personality or prima donna, and they might think they're top producers because they're doing 1 or 2 deals a month, and they might be the top producer in their office or the top producer of that month or whatever else. But it's like, we have to break that down and really have some real conversations around that. So it's really kind of like losing the ego, which we'll talk about here in a minute also. Yeah. Make sure that you're responding in a timely manner to everybody that's corresponding with you as well. If people are sending you, that just kind of segues in that whole 5-minute rule. That was one of our toughest things, James, was I would hand out a lead or send you a lead through our lead generation system that would ping to me, and then I would ping it out to the agent that I want to handle it. I thought they were a good fit for you. And then 2 days later, I'd follow up with you. How was that lead? And you're like, oh, I'm going to call them today after lunch. And I would absolutely not make decisions without emotional.
It's not a grocery list. It's a call right now list.
Yeah, it would be like, dude, what are you talking about? You didn't call them? Like, when the first 5 minutes, that lead's hot. That's what a hot lead means. By the time 2 days passes, right, that's a cold lead. That might be a lukewarm touch if they pick up the phone, but a lot of times what happens when we call a lead 2 or 3 days later, Marshall?
It's already under contract.
Yeah, or they just don't know who you are. They're in complete denial they were ever on your website, right? They're in complete
Their
denial.
email says Susie at gmail.com. The phone number goes back to Susie or whatever. And it's like, I'm not Susie. It's like
checks their hair blue eyes, brown hair, everything else, has a poodle, like all this stuff. And it's just like, this isn't you? Like this? Nope, that wasn't me. I was never on
picture shows poodle with the blue hair.
Yeah. Like everything that you put in matches your Facebook page once we Facebook stalked you, but it wasn't you. Okay. Yeah. But usually that's what it is because at that point they've talked to so many agents that did follow up. If don't be fooled that if they came to your website, a lead comes off of your website, that you are the only website that they visited. I'm sure they visited Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com or one of the other search sites out there or one of your competitors' websites. Somebody has called them back. Somebody out there is hungry and has called them immediately. And if you don't like to call, I get it. However, that's really the name of the game. The phone is your cash register. Call them, and then if they don't pick up, send them a text immediately. Or what's one of our favorite things to do, Marshall?
Send them a video message? You thought I wasn't paying attention.
What's that?
You thought I wasn't paying attention. I was actually going to say I was showing a house yesterday, and I asked the agent, and she said that you're the first one that called me back, and I hear that quite a bit. So
yeah.
Being speedy to the phone, be the first one that calls them back, be the first one to build that rapport with them, and boom, there you got it.
And a lot of times we're the first one to call them back. Yeah, we're the first one to call them back. We're the first one to send them a video message, and then after that, we're the first one to send them a handwritten note, or something from what's the service we're using now?
Banner Season.
Banner Season. We're the first one that sends them a card or some brownies or some snack or a coffee cup or something like that from Banner Season. If you want to know more about Banner Season, check it out. I can send you a code to sign up for that. Let's go on here. So address complacency, right? And so that's a huge one with us lately is that, what's your financial thermostat? What are you good with? Are you good with one listing a month? Are you just great with 2 listings a month or 2 deals a month? That might be complacency that you're comfortable.
I only need $5,000 a month.
Yeah, I can only live off. I've had agents that I've coached tell me that, like, I just need to make $5,000 a month.
Why not 10?
I mean, okay, do you need to make $5,000 a month? Like, do you need to clear $5,000 a month? Like, what do you mean? Do you need $5,000 a month in profit? Do you need, what do you need? Do you need $10,000 a month, and after you pay taxes and your broker and all this other stuff, you get to walk away with $5,000? And so, what is the complacency for you look like? Everybody out there has a hint of complacency.
Could be education.
Yeah. I mean, I've before gotten complacency in my education. I know that you guys have, and we get complacent. One part of our education, say that, right? So we don't learn the new contracts coming out or knew all the additions to the new contract because we're complacent that we know the contracts and we don't need to know that. We'll just kind of fill it out and go as usual, right? That was my latest one of complacency. Another one was really over the little holiday break we just had. Like, I had the complacency of that I gave the whole office the whole week off, right? And so
we had off.
Most of us had off. I don't know what you were actually doing. You went and worked at somewhere else, though. You went and worked at the restaurant. Your family business.
And work. So I showed a few homes.
Oh, did you? So actually, I did too. Up in Temple to myself, but I was still showing homes. Anyway, complacency is a huge one that you have to battle. And a lot of times people can think they're not complacent. However, you need to audit your schedule every single day. And what are your goals? What is your financial thermostat? Are you good with just making $50,000 a year? If you're only selling 1 deal a month, that's certainly somewhere you're probably, depending on what area you're in, you're probably only making anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 a month, and right below the national poverty line or somewhere right around the poverty line. Maybe you have a different situation than I have where you have maybe a spouse that can pick up the rest of the slack. Maybe you treat this as a hobby, or a charity, whichever it is. I don't care how you run your business, but I'm sure somewhere in there's some complacency. So it's always good to gauge what you're kind of relaxing on, or it's fun for us right now. My biggest thing is to raise our financial thermostat, right? And so I think that we've talked about this before from Russell Shaw we just talked about it with Steve Full, actually. was he goes through a whole process of asking you, what all your bills are, what's your house payment, what's your car payment, how much do you need for, fun and nightlife, groceries, everything else. And it works out to be about $40,000. That's exactly what you're going to make is $40,000. And if you actually break out of that a little bit and you really kind of make 50,000, you'll spend the extra 10,000 on frivolous BS. You won't have any savings or anything else. You'll work your way back down to only having $40,000. It's a weird phenomenon, but I want to study that more. And so my whole thing is raising my financial thermostat. When I got into the business, my marker was what, 100K. Most agents we speak to, and I say, hey, how much money do you need to make this year? They say it's always 100K, right? And I think after 4 or 5 years, if you haven't broken the 100K mark, not Kmart, but Kmart, you really need to raise your financial thermostat. And if you're not reaching the 100K and you're right about that 75, you're more than likely complacent at that 75 zone. So raise it up to 150. You have to start thinking and rewire and reprogram your brain. So let me see here. We need to start wrapping this up real quick. That's going to be the last one for the day. So which one are you? And if you had to rate yourself on these things we just went through 1 to 10, where would you be? I would say that I'm somewhere probably around a 6 or a 7. There's a lot of these things that I can work on to be a more successful agent. Marshall, if you rated yourself, where would you be?
I'm a solid 6.5, Dave.
Oh, wow.
I could use some work. I mean, I'm put the ego
James,
aside.
what about you? James, what about you? I know that some of the production stuff is kind of going over here. We've really kind of brought you on more now for the marketing person. So I know you're going to be a lot learning based right now. You know how to do a lot of stuff. You're a very tech oriented person. However, with video and with all these other programs that we've got going, where would you rate yourself right now?
Probably about a 6 as far as overall, but I think it depends on which specific area. Since there's about 5 or 6 that we're really focusing on, like diving deep into, I think I'm lower on some and then higher on others. And so as I realign everything, schedule things, and keep devoting time and energy towards the task, it'll bring everything up. And so I'll have like an even 8, 9 in the next couple of months, over the next year probably, as we build everything out. And so, and by building it out, it'll also, continue to expand into more things.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever be a 10. I think I'll always push to be a 10, but I'll always just be that carrot dangling there that I'll always be chasing, because right now the bar's set high. And so if I go anywhere near achieving the bar, then it's almost not high enough. And it will always just naturally push itself out anyway. You'll always want to achieve more, right? And so one big thing that I like to do is I like to think big, and I like to encourage everybody around me to think big. And a lot of times we start off our Monday morning meetings with, let's think big. How can we think bigger? And a lot of these things right here, they require just big thinking, right? And so you have to think big. If you have massive goals, you have to do massive shit to achieve those goals, right? And so nobody achieves epic status by doing basic shit, right? So I actually love that quote. However, there's 2 types of people, those that do and those that don't. So you have to ask yourself, are you one that does or one that doesn't? You can't really do it half-ass. Like you need to go all in on this business if you want the success that I know that most of you do. I mean, most everybody we talk to wants to make $100,000. Do you know what goes into making $100,000? I mean, you really need to know. There's this cool spreadsheet out there. Actually, Keller Williams had it for a while, and then I think that's all shut down now, but we can reach out to some of our Keller Williams people and ask them. But there was another spreadsheet that I'd like to get my hands on again. If I find it, I will post it. But basically, it breaks it down to how many listings, how many buyers, how many leases, how many things you have to do to make $100,000, right? And then you could start breaking it down by really appointment. And so if you need to make, 4,000 phone calls, for every 100 phone calls you make, you get 1 deal out of it. And so you need X amount of deals to make $100,000 or $150,000, and you need 4,000 phone calls. Most people will look at that as pretty daunting, right? Mm-hmm. However, you can break it down and reverse engineer it to, if I have that goal set that I need 100 transactions for my team, that's going to be 8,000 phone calls between 6 agents. How many is that per day, right? And so I can reverse engineer that stuff. And so I would have to end this whole thing basically every day, make sure that there's no complacency going on, that everybody's putting their full time in on this and really going after this. And if we hit all these things, we're going to nail these goals, right?
Yep.
So anyway, I want to thank our sponsor real quick. It's Michael Harrell. If you want to get a hold of Mike, just text Magic Mike to 88000. If you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us at Top Shelf at 88000. Our phone, our text code is always 88000. So, and then we have a third one is if you'd like to learn more about EXP, of course you can go there. So join EXP at 88000. Want to appreciate you, or I just want to say we appreciate you watching this. We'll have more of these Zoom meetings coming at you and more podcasts coming your way. For Real Estate on the Rocks crew, we're out here.
I'm out.
There you go.